Hi, Gerhard Bloom, once again looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So is Islam a religion of peace? Short answer, no, not even close. It's been a 1400-year history of barbarism, brutality. Liberation in Islam comes from submission. Right? Islam means submission, and it is war, jihad, until the world and you submit. Islam, without question, is fascism in religious clothing. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and I mentioned the Palestinian terrorist organizations and other Muslim terrorist groups are all deeply concerned that their path is following the path of the righteous jihadi, right? They are all concerned that their campaigns of horror are consistent with the teachings of Islam. They are following the example of Muhammad, the venerated prophet of their particular God. Muhammad saw it as his highest duty to spread Islam by the sword, and he did just that. Millions were killed in the spread of Islam. Millions are being killed, or I shouldn't say millions, people now are being killed in the name of Islam and the name of this jihad. Reflect on the fact that Muhammad was no Christ, a poor prophet in sandals, preaching love and forgiveness. Muhammad was a general, and he was also a political leader. There is no division between church and state in Islam. They want to impose Sharia, the sacred law, on everyone. And in Europe, they're having more and more success all the time. And just as Christ represents the embodiment of moral perfection for the Christian, so Muhammad represents to the Muslim. The Quran explicitly commands the believer to conduct their lives following the example of the Prophet. He was allegedly the most perfect Muslim. The medieval barbarism one finds common in the Muslim world and increasingly in the West is explained by the fact that Muhammad himself either explicitly endorsed them or practiced them himself. How could ISIS terrorist fighters possibly justifying young Yazidi girls and sexually enslaving them? Well, because no less authority than Muhammad had sex slaves. This is a fact. It's a historical fact. And he also passed around captured women to be raped and sold into sexual slavery. That's why they can justify it. The religiously motivated killings and assassinations, torturing people, sawing off of limbs, beheading of captives, Muhammad did exactly that. As one example among many of Muhammad's crimes against humanity, he and his lovely young wife, and by young I mean 12-year-old girl consigned to a life of sexual and domestic slavery, Muhammad and Aisha spent a lovely afternoon together in Medina watching the spectacle of 800 Jews getting their heads cut off for the sole crime of denying Muhammad was the prophet of Allah. And as if these medieval practices aren't enough to warrant serious concern, Muhammad's successors were explicitly given the task of pursuing the war of the righteous. That's right, jihad. And they did. It remains a standing duty, a standing religious duty for Muslims to wage jihad. And it's important to note here that this includes more than actual fighting, but it does include fighting. It can and does include many other forms: proselytizing, funding, the use of deceit and lying, as well as, of course, the militant violence. Deceit and lying? Oh yes. The Quran explicitly endorses sacred deceit, taqiyya, to further Islam's version of social justice, as it happens. This is why you regularly see Muslim apologists blatantly lie about the basic tenets of their faith. They lie to you. The ultimate aim for the true believer is nothing less than a world governed by divine law, Sharia, allegedly given to the Prophet Muhammad. And I've mentioned this before. I know many, many wonderful Muslim individuals, close friends of mine, Muslims. They do not harbor this dark vision. Their vision of Islam, Islam as they practice it, is moderate, modern, and restrained. But Islam isn't moderate, modern, or restrained. And you perhaps don't know that reformation in Islam is a crime. You try to reform Islam and its governing text, the Quran. The Quran is allegedly perfect, universal, and complete. Do you see much elbow room there for reform? Reformers in Islam get killed. They get killed. And if you want to leave Islam, Muslims will kill you. This is a fact. This is a fact. People in the Muslim world have been and are being killed for renouncing Islam. Anyways, I hope you will check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. It's available on Amazon. It's not important because I wrote it, but the issues, they are important. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Bye-bye.